Do you want to become a talk show host? Do you have a great idea? Passionate World Talk Radio is currently looking for podcast hosts for our Internet Talk radio station. Please email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com with your name, email address, cell phone number, and podcast topic. In return, you will receive a 3-minute intro on air to a live audience about your podcast. Remember, just email us your name, email address, and your podcast topic, and in return, you will receive a free 3-minute intro on the air. How cool is that? Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
Hi, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy at Passionate World Talk Radio Network, where we educate, enlighten, and entertain. And, folks, though I have a special guest for you, I cannot believe I am going to be interviewing someone I watched on TV when I was growing up, somebody who I wanted to be. And my guest today is Kathy Garver, who played Cissy on Family Affair. She does voiceovers. She was the voice of Firestar on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friend. She is an author. She wrote many books. One of them is Surviving Cissy, My Family Affair of Life in Hollywood, cookbooks. She was in the 10 Commandments. Welcome, Kathy Garver. I'm so honored to be talking to you.
Well, thank you so much, Betsy. It's nice to talk with you, too.
I am starstruck here. I cannot help it. I loved Family Affair. I wanted to be you. I wanted to live with Uncle Bill. I had a crush on Uncle Bill, Ryan Keith. I thought he was very handsome. Tell us, Cissy, how did you become an actress?
How did I become an actress?
Yes.
Well, I started when actually I was 3 years old at the Meglin Studios in Hollywood, and Ethel Meglin ran this wonderful children's studio where they taught even toddlers how to sing and dance, and that is where Shirley Temple got her beginning. A producer saw her at the Meglin Studios and said, well, look at this adorable little girl with the curls in her hair. So my mother put me in that studio. I'm of course, younger than Shirley Temple was, but she put me in curls, probably expecting me to be the next Shirley Temple. But I wasn't, but I was the original Kathy Garver, and that's when I first started learning my skills. But I didn't, and I did plays even when I was 5 and 6, but I didn't start professionally till I was about 7 years old. And that's my first movie that I did was The Night of the Hunter, which was now termed one of the best horror films that has ever been made. And it was with Robert Mitchum and Shelley Winters and Peter Graves, and it had a wonderful cast. And it was the first movie that Charles Laughton had ever directed. But it got really bad reviews. It was very much ahead of its time. So he vowed that he would never, unfortunately, direct another movie, and he was so wonderful in this one. But from there I went on, and I did the 10 Commandments, as you have mentioned. And I hate to tell you, that's Betsy, but it is the 65th anniversary of the 10 Commandments, the one with Charlton Heston, etc. So I don't want people going through and saying, oh, let me see how old she is. I am perennially 39 years old.
Well, I looked on your Facebook fan page, Kathy, and you are still beautiful. You're vivacious, and you are still going strong. You are still doing TV shows, you're producing. I have to know this because people, always wonder, why is it that some children, actors, they can't seem to make it once their show ends, but you thrived. You just kept on going. And did your parents, were they strict? Did they keep you grounded? You must have had a good head on your shoulders.
Well, I think kind of all of the above. I was the youngest of 4 children, and so I kind of had more of my parents to myself. And we lived in Los Angeles, having moved from Oklahoma. So I grew up in Hollywood. I think what saved me a lot, well, one, I never took drugs. I drink wine, but I never took drugs. And secondly, I went to college. I have a bachelor's degree in speech and psychology and a master's degree in theater arts. So that really held me in good stead. And in one of my first books, Surviving Cissy, it's like my life was weaving a quilt and different threads of my life that went along. And what I said in the book is, an actor's life is very interesting because it's not like a 9-to-5 job. You do the job and then you don't have it anymore. And so I found to keep myself going in the business, I developed the different areas in the field of entertainment. So whereas I started in film, but I also did TV. I did radio. They call it now old-time radio. And when I finished my show, I said, okay, now what's next? I went to London. Well, I actually went to Israel to do a stage musical presentation, a family affair, and they had written a Hebrew musical that was to be presented in. So I didn't speak Hebrew, but I learned to do this show, and I learned it phonetically. And after Israel, I went to England, and then went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. So I thought, well, I'll just come back to Hollywood, and everybody will have their arms open to me. Well, they didn't, really. So what I did was travel around the country doing dinner theaters. Do you remember dinner theaters?
Yes. I'm 63, so yes.
Yes, and remember, there was all kinds of wonderful dinner theaters that they would have around the country. They were very popular, like in the 70s and 80s. And so I did all of those. And then I said, okay, now what's going on? And so I developed a voiceover career, and I've done like 5 animated series. You mentioned one of them, which is Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I played Firestar. I go to a lot of Comic-Cons, and they have a new little character of Firestar out this year, which I have and I sign. And I do keep going. I mean, this year is very celebratory. Besides the 65th anniversary of 10 Commandments, it's also an anniversary year for Family Affair. It's its 55th anniversary. And so in order to celebrate that, I'm bringing out a new book called The Family Affair Scrapbook. And it's pictures of all kinds of memorabilia and photos. And I will be doing museum exhibits with the actual memorabilia, like the lunch boxes and Mrs. Beasley and all kinds of things paraphernalia that we're just starting to come into the world. During our time of 66 to 71, they hadn't had so much merchandise, but there was an abundance in not crossword puzzles, but the other kind of puzzles that you put together, and all kinds of things. So we're celebrating that. I have another book coming out this year called TV Dinners, TV, to go along with a pilot that we have made and that we are selling together. And we just I'm executive producer of this show called Idle Chat, which is going to be on Retro TV starting in September. And Susan Anton is the host, and we bring together the casts of classic shows. So, like, there's Happy Days, and there's all kinds of different shows that like Tony Dow and Jerry Mathers and Leave It to Beaver. So that's a fun one. So I'm a busy person, and they're bringing out also my Surviving Cissy memoir book in paperback because it was a good seller. So yes, I'm busy, and plus I have my 30-year-old son and his girlfriend who has been living with my husband and myself for the last 6 years, not just through the pandemic, but always. My son never left. He just invited people in. So we have a household, and I cook almost every night.
Well, I know you have many cookbooks out. You have the Family Affair cookbook. You can have your TV dinner cookbook out, and then you have other ones which people could see on Amazon. If they go on Amazon, they could see all the books. I have to just say this, Kathy. My late brother, Bradley, would be so happy that I am talking to you. He loves watching the old shows. We all watched Family Affair. So it's too bad he's not alive to hear this, because he would really be happy for me. And I just think you're amazing. You're just you just keep going on, and you have reinvented yourself, which people have to do to keep in whatever business they're in. You have to keep evolving. And I have to ask you, what was it like working with Brian Keith? Because I had the biggest crush on him.
Well, he is very, very handsome, and he was great. He was a very interesting personality. And in my new book, the Family Affair Scrapbook, I did like a little summary of him. And what was so appealing, I think, was that he was this very macho man, ex-Marine, and yet he is a sensitive soul, and he loved kids, and he loved his family, and he went through different machinations during the 5-year run of Family Affair. The first year was very outward going, and would tell anecdotes, and then there was tragedy, and one of his children drowned and died, and so that really was, that put him, of course, in a very depressive funk. And then he got a divorce from his wife the next year, but then the third year he met Victoria when he was doing the movie Krakatoa, East of Java, and so then they got married, and so he was happier. So we went through a whole life cycle of Brian during those 5 years. He had many life things that happened to him. What I found interesting was when I was doing this research, because we got him a star on the Walk of Stars in Hollywood, and I gave a speech for him, and I did a little research, and also his wife Victoria was there. I realized that we were born the same year. And so I thought, no wonder Brian and I are, kind of at arm's length distance. But because I thought he was charming, but he was very fatherly to me. He, was kind, and he treated me with respect and as a daughter, and I was very grateful for that. He was really a good-hearted man. An excellent, excellent actor. I learned a lot about acting from Brian and Sebastian Cabot, who played Mr. French, because they each had such different kinds of acting styles. So I kind of picked up on both of them, and that's the one that I have gone with through lately and through most of my acting career.
Mr. French, I loved him. Was he... I know he was acting Sebastian Cabot. How was he in person? Was he friendly, or was he very formal?
Well, it was interesting because when he was on the set, he was very professional and kind of in character. But I went to his house. I was invited to his house a couple times for dinner, and at his home, he was just very relaxed, like a sweatsuit and cooking and very much a family man. He loved his family, his wife Kay and his children, and so he was really the antithesis of the firm and strong Mr. French. But what he had, which came through, was this love this innate love of like children and people. And I really think that is why our show did well and continued and continues to this day on like MeTV and Decades and Amazon, et cetera, Hulu, DVDs, because there was this thread of concern and care and love for people. And that's pretty classic. As a matter of fact, I just had a call this morning because we have a new show about family affair, and it kind of fits into the novella type of thing of starting with Aunt Cissy. So I think will go on for decades. So that's all in the works and moving along quite nicely.
Well, that is amazing. I know where I live in New Jersey, it's still on A Family Affair. It's on in the morning on my cable, channel 238, and Decade TV, I think it's called. And I was like, I said to my son, I said, Josh, because I had it on one morning, I said, you see who played Cissy? I'm going to interview her. I just thought you were, beautiful. I thought it was a great show. Back then, all those shows had a moral story, a thing behind it. And I wanted someone like Uncle Bill in my life to give me wisdom. And I just thought it was a sweet show. But you were not a teenager. Or no, you were older than a teenager when you did Cissy.
Right.
You were in college.
I was supposed to be playing a 15-year-old. And I told the producers and directors I was 18. And they like having someone 18 to play younger because then I don't have to go to school for 3 hours. I could work all day. I can work longer than 8 hours. In reality, I was 20. And so I was 20 playing a 15-year-old. But I had just previously done a Death Valley Days with June Lockhart, and I played a young Isadora Duncan, Dorita Duncan, and I was 18 at that time playing a 12-year-old. I'm really little. I'm not like skinny and petite, but I'm 5 feet tall, 5'1". Well, I'm 5 feet half an inch, so I always scooted up to 5'1". So, and I have this really young face, like a baby face with kind of a turned up nose and things, and so I do look younger than my age. So I was able to be, I think, very believable as, a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old. When it got to the 5th year, I was starting to feel my oats a little as a 25-year-old. Thinking, oh, wow, I'm playing a 20-year-old because we actually only aged 3 years in that 5 years. So it's 15, 16, 17, 18, and I was 25. And Anissa, Buffy, started out as almost 9 years old. She was playing a 6-year-old. Johnny, the one that played Jody, was the only one that was true to his age, and he was just 6. So even though they were twins, she was older than he.
And how were the children to work with? They seemed so cute on TV.
They were both very smart. They were smart kids, and they followed direction well. The problem with child actors, a lot. I wrote a book on child stars called Ex-Child Stars, and Where Are They Now? But when the child starts out so young, they are hired for a couple things, that they follow direction well, and they can memorize lines. And that's all really good for a child. And they are encouraged to just be natural, be themselves. So after the show is finished, or after they go through a horrible transition of being a 13 and a 14-year-old and then, an adult actor, they have been trained to learn their lines and hit the mark. They haven't been taught anything about what a character is, what a scene is, what what you do, the different styles of acting. So they're really at a disadvantage. You look at some of the child actors who have succeeded so well, and they were all like graduates of Yale or whatever, like Jodie Foster or Brooke Shields, and that had really good careers because they took it upon themselves to learn about acting, even though they were stars when they were young, which is very, very, very smart thing to do. I mean, so I went to UCLA, and I really credit that a lot and to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. That has really stood me in good stead all through my very long career.
So you would probably recommend to parents of children who are starting out in this business to encourage them to have an education after they're done with their acting, if they were in a show for a few years, and keep them grounded.
Absolutely.
You know, don't treat them like a prince or princess. Have them get down to, you know, the reality. And I just think that, you know, you're a shining example of someone who's grounded, and you furthered your, you know, career, your education, and still going strong. I mean, I just found you very inspirational. I want to encourage people to go on your Facebook fan page. I did, and I'm like having a blast, you know, looking at it. And you do look terrific, and you do not look your age. And I just am so honored to be talking to you, and I thank you so much for coming on my show. And you're welcome to come back anytime.
Thank you very much, Betsy. I appreciate it. And I just wanted to say, because you reminded me, because when I was in school and I would go out and do like a guest star as a child, and my mother would always tell me, says, well, don't tell everybody where you went, you know, just tell them you were out. And she really did everything she could to try and make me normal. I'd have a little wink in my eye and something I'm not real totally normal, but it did really help for that groundedness. So yes. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. And thanks for mentioning my Facebook page, because I'd love to have new people all the time. And my 5 books now and my 2 more books, sure, have them come by and go to my website, even at kathygarver.com, and they can get an autographed copy.
Excellent. Thank you. That will be in the blog. Thank you so much. Kathy Garver, one of my idols from my youth. I just cannot believe I'm talking to you, and yes, I am starstruck. I cannot help it. You are my second celebrity that I have interviewed, and I was starstruck when I interviewed Ruta Lee. So just, you know, you both are just so wonderful, so easy to talk to, and just thank you. I really appreciate you coming on my show, and it was an honor really for you to come on. And folks, go to Kathy Garver's fan page. The information is going to be in the blog, so please read the blog. And I want to thank Jeannie White, station manager at Passionate World Talk Radio Network, for producing the show, writing the blog, and for Lillian Caldwell, CEO, Passionate World Talk Radio Network. And if you missed any of this podcast, you can hear it again on your favorite podcast outlet. Subscribe. Chatting with Betsy, it's free. You'll never know who I will have on next. I had on Kathy Garver. If you don't know her, look her up. Go to her fan page. Go to her website, and you will just be really amazed. What a career you've had, Kathy, and best wishes in your other endeavors.
Thank you so much, Betsy. Appreciate it.
Best wishes to you. You're welcome. Folks,
okay.
This is Betsy. Okay, bye, Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network. Folks, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind. Until we chat again, just be good humans. Bye-bye, everybody.
Do you want to become a talk show host? Do you have a great idea? Passionate World Talk Radio is currently looking for podcast hosts for our Internet Talk radio station. Please email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com with your name, email address, cell phone number, and podcast topic. In return, you will receive a 3-minute intro on air to a live audience about your podcast. Remember, just email us your name, email address, and your podcast topic, and in return, you will receive a free 3-minute intro on the air. How cool is that? Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the Internet.